Hello and welcome to today's Skill Up session from Princeton PeopleSat, powered by Techstrong. I'm your moderator, Helen Beale, Chief Ambassador at DevOps Institute, and today we're talking about how AI impacts project management. On our mega panel today, we have Tracy, Anna, Orit and Guillermo. Welcome everybody. Before we get started, I want to let the audience know that this programme is live and being recorded, so you can view it again for on demand. There are chat and Q&A boxes on the right side of your screen to communicate with the general audience in the chat, and questions for us on the panel in the Q&A. So let's start with some introductions. Let's start with Trace. Trace, tell the audience all about yourself.
As long as I can toggle my mic effectively, I will. Trace Bannon, my name is Tracy. I go by Trace. I am a software architect and an engineer. In the United States, I work with a firm called the MITRE Corporation, and it is federally funded research and development. So I get to help the government figure out things very objectively. So we're not for profit. So it's a pretty interesting place to be. I've been with them for about 4 years and spent a couple of decades with global consultancies before that, trying to solve really tough problems using software and applying AI, ML, etc.
And I'm super excited to have yet another opportunity to have a conversation with you, Trace. So welcome again. Anna, would you like to tell the audience about yourself?
Oh, sure. I started my career as a software developer engineer, and then I moved into project management when I joined IBM. And I stayed with IBM for over a decade. And then I came to British Telecom, which I've been almost a couple of decades. And in project management. So I've been working with customers transformation and AI has always been in the background, and now people are using it more and more. So yeah,
certainly coming to the forefront, isn't it? I'm really excited about this opportunity to talk about it in the context of project management today. It's great to see such a wide geography in the audience as well, because we've got quite a geography today, a couple of us from the UK, one from America. And Guillermo, why don't you tell the audience where you're from and your background?
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Guillermo, I'm from Spain, although I'm usually based in the Netherlands. I'm a technology architect with background in computer science engineering. I've been leading the DevOps department in Accenture for the last 10 years, and recently I opened my own boutique, which is called Techtic, which is focused on modern engineering and modern delivery. And obviously, AI is one of the things. So to be honest, from my past, I was learning some AI at university time, so really long time ago. And when AI became a trend, again, 4 or 5 years ago, even a little bit earlier than what we have nowadays, I've been playing it quite a lot with, and to be honest, nowadays I'm using it quite often for managing a lot of projects that I'm running. But I'm a techie, I'm a nerd on technology. So that's why I'm very interested on that.
Perfect. Great to have you with us as well. Thanks for joining us. And last but absolutely not least, Orit.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Helen. My name is Orit Golowinski. I'm based in Israel, and I'm the VP of products for a company called JIT.io. Previously, I was director of product management at GitLab, where I also oversaw the dev section, including planning, which is very relevant for project management as well. So I'm excited about the topic. Before that, I came from a company called Celebrite, where I was director of R&D and also responsible for the DevOps department, which was the first time I ever heard of DevOps, and was amazed at how anytime someone from my team was put on any assignment, everything became more productive and efficient. And I was just super curious about it. And that's where I continued my journey around DevOps. I also did my master's in cybersecurity, where we also learned machine learning a couple of years ago, and the whole base to AI. So it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm excited about talking about it today.
Perfect. It's great to have you with us as well. So thank you very much. We do have our first question already from the audience. We haven't even started yet, but participant 144 would like to know if we will be addressing the recommended governance framework as project managers we must follow implementing AI projects. So we can start there if you like. I think, Trace, if I pick on you, perhaps I think this might be one that you have a few things to say about. Do you have any insights about the governance frameworks, or should we just touch on this as we go through the session, do you think?
I say touch on it as we go through, because we're going to be talking about project management is huge, just like we talk about DevOps, and there's so many different facets that are probably easier for us to touch on it as we go.
Cool. Why don't you kick us off then by kind of setting the scene about how AI can help project managers? What are the kind of key ways in which it can be used?
Oh, it's exceptionally broad, just like it is for all aspects of business right now. And in our tech world, obviously, we've talked about how we apply it to DevSecOps, how we apply it to design aspects. Think about pulling that back and the overall flow that has to happen for project management. Better selection and prioritization, like this ability to feed in different sets of data and have better mathematically calculated, because these large language models, especially generative AI, it's based on math, and it does a better job, right, than oftentimes in playing out different scenarios than we have on our own ability to do. We will need to keep track very closely at first as models are being trained, because the models aren't perfect. And I would say that's one bit of guidance for everybody. It definitely is not perfect. Obviously, we also know that it can generate all kinds of text on our behalf. There's a lot of documentation. Some of it's legal, some policy. Some of it are things that we're trying to do away with, but our ability to generate necessary documentation that we need as part of a program management organization is another piece. Virtual assistants are going to be a piece of this. We're getting to the point where we're getting better estimations, actuals to estimations. How long does it take us to build and to do things? So I'm just sprinkling a couple of ideas that are there because it is a pretty broad conversation. I do anticipate, though, we are going to see a slowdown before we see a speed up because of the learning curve. And it takes a little bit more than people realize to really get your arms around how to best leverage it for your particular use case, right? Context is everything.
One thing that if I may add, one thing that is quite interesting and people are talking about is generative AI, which is basically you feed in information for a specific point. For example, just let's look at something very basic, a project closure. Okay, you feed in your your milestones or your last or your few milestones, and the AI will generate the document that you can use for your project closure, depending on the milestones that you had achieved and the situation you were. So, like Tracy said, it's all based on the information we feed in. And this one with the project closure documentation, it's a perfect example because it is a step on the project timeline, and you can actually use it depending on what you fit into your project and the milestones you have. So yeah.
Well, I'll throw another little hand grenade in from a conversation point. As we continue to move from projects to products, at least we're talking about project management writ large. However, in my world, where I focus mostly on the software side of it, it also is helping us to evolve and move towards those products where software is never quite done. It is improving some of the different facets of the SDLC, the software development lifecycle. The place where I find it to be the most advanced right now, most helpful, is actually with testing and test data. I do not trust yet. It's going to take a good bit of time more until I allow it to be used for generating software itself, because there are some situational, there's a number of different situations that come up with security, et cetera. I'd be interested, or at your background, right, as a cybersecurity pro, what are your thoughts on, generative AI, ML, right, the three of them writ large?
So first of all, I think that both for Gen AI and also for project management, one of the things and the key benefits that we can use is something that we as humans are really bad at, and that's finding trends. And I think that's something that is definitely something that can definitely help with project management, because we're pretty bad at looking at data and say, oh, this team is taking much longer to do it. Maybe I should assign it to someone else. And I think someone needs to help us figure that out. And that's where AI can really be beneficial. So finding those trends and predictions is key. And I've spoken to Helen on different panels on value stream management, and it ties into that as well. So a lot of the bottlenecks will be around reviews or something like that. And here with using Gen AI, they can actually help move it to the right team. Maybe if it's an AI generated code that Tracy, I'll talk about the security portion in a bit, but maybe it doesn't have to, maybe it does have to have human eyes, and maybe it doesn't. Maybe we say if it's a machine created code, maybe a machine reviews it. There's a lot that we can see to shorten the cycle there and benefit from that. And then on the security side, absolutely, there is a ton of concern using AI for several reasons. First of all, just saying we're going to generate AI from code sounds like an amazing idea, and we can save costs on software developers and whatnot. However, if we're using Gen AI without actually reviewing what it's doing, it's very naive. And maybe we've already seen cases where secrets were exposed because people were copying as is from the ChatGPT and things like that. So we definitely need to avoid that. But also, just as someone who wants to use Gen AI for like positive things and creating good code, we have the bad actors that are looking at it and are looking at AI and finding different vectors where they can insert malicious code to be activated on later on, where you wouldn't necessarily see it. So there's a lot of different concerns there.
Well, there's specifically to the code generation, we've done carried out some pretty interesting experiments. We find that we can leverage it much like we could a brand new, fresh out of school developer. So highly simple tasks, one for one, roughly the same, although you are given 5, 6, 7 different options, right? Too many options. And most new in career do not have the talent and experience yet to know which thing to pick. So it's when it comes to simple replacement, not a problem. The attack vectors, though, are where my big concern is. And the way that you want, if you want to take a model right now, any model that you train yourself or that is trained on your behalf, there's such a corpus, right? This big corpus of data that's going into it. So knowing the source of that corpus is wildly important. And if we're thinking about it creating code for us, is that code that was fed in the first place, was that public sourced? What was the quality of that? It'd be very easy for me to actually start to insert bad code, not directly into the model. I'll just put it into the corpus that you're going to pull in. So we're watching those things right now. We're experimenting. We're trying to get smarter, faster than the bad guys, right? That's the key part of all of this.
I would also say that something really interesting about Gen AI is we have to learn how to leverage it correctly. And so you need to be an expert on the prompts that you actually give it in order to get the right response. So if you're just asking, oh, how do I write a Python code that does blah, 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 and you get a code, it's not in context with anything else in your tech stack. So you don't understand the effect it has on your infrastructure, on your deployment model. Or there's so many different areas that you can't just look at it and just say, oh, here's the answer.
That doesn't replace us. I think that's what everybody needs to hear is it's not going to replace us. Yeah, it may be in many years to come. However, for right now, it behooves all of us to learn how to use it, to apply it in our domains to the things that we need to do. I keep counseling organizations, when you're looking at this, don't just suddenly throw it at everything possible. Take a look at where you need help, where you need to reduce risk, where you need to improve quality. Look at those places and then run your first pilot and make sure that you understand the security aspects of it, understand the impact on humans. Imagine if you're spending every day, and I'd love to hear Guillermo thinks of this one. Imagine that you're spending every day pair programming with an AI bot that's in your browser with you, or that's in your IDE, right? What is the psychological impact of that? It's some pretty cool research that's going on. We don't really know what's going to happen there.
Yeah, from my side, I'm using AI for code generator, for testing, for project management. I do it. I use it for a lot of things. I have to say, first of all, my feeling, especially if I'm thinking about ChatGPT, is that it gives you always kind of like, it treats you very polite. So whatever you say to ChatGPT, in the case, is always telling you like, yes, you're right. You are always right, and that's not true. And the same things happen with the code. You are asking for certain code, and indeed, as Ori was saying, if you don't provide the right inputs, the outcome that is going to provide is going to tell you like, yeah, this is the perfect thing. And in fact, sometimes it does even not work, especially when you are building some kind of like complex code. So for me, the first thing is like, you need to know there are a lot of AI models and tools. You need to know which one to use. Copilot, for instance, work way better for generating code than the others. Also, it's a little bit more secure in the terms of algorithms, but still, would never just put the code coming from there without anything on top of, like checking security scanners, stuff like that, because it's not that good. Testing, for instance, I like it a little bit better because, as Tracy was saying, yeah, it's a little bit more redundant task. You have your code already. Please validate that this thing works, or write me the code for testing. That's good. And then, of course, the topic of today, project management. Again, the AI in general, what I found is like, it always gives you, it tries to please you all the time. So if you ask ChatGPT for estimating certain amount of activities, and it gives you a big number, and then you say like, oof, that's too big, it's going to give you a lower number just because you are telling that is too big. So it tries to please you all the time, and most of the times it's not going to be correct, because we don't like to hear sometimes reality, and ChatGPT or others AI generators is not giving us the reality a lot of times, especially in project management. So I think the right inputs is always important to provide them there. So in that case, it can help you a little bit better. Otherwise, you're going to have plannings and estimations that they are not accurate at all.
Well, at the end of the day, specifically for generative AI, it's math. It's statistical probability that words are going to be together, whether those are programming words. It's not particularly good with numbers. It's not particularly good if you most of the tools, if you go out and test and say, I would like you to generate something that is 500 words long. If you count them, I've done multiple tests against this, most of them do not have that capability. So it's interesting to think that we're putting so much hope on the mathematical probability that words are going to appear side by side. It's a fantastic technology. We have to remember it is a tool for us to use, and it is not human, even though, to your point, the sentences that are provided back to you are so well structured that there's a natural believability. Yeah, wow, look at that. That's wonderful. It must be correct. No, it's just written so well that there's a plausible believability to it, which is one of the ways that we're seeing people make mistakes, because they read it, they see it, they read it, and then they are using things and getting themselves into some trouble. I see a question out here about balancing costs. Upfront, it can be very expensive to build your own model. That is coming down dramatically in the last 6 to 8 months when it comes to building and training your own model. But I think one of the most important things when you're leveraging a model, whether you are using a SaaS-based and you've checked in security concerns for it, or you're building your own, is to validate and be tracking the amount of time it takes somebody to attempt to use it. To Orit's point earlier, prompt engineering is tough. It isn't as simple as just typing in, I need some Python code to do this, or I need a project management plan or a traditional document. It's not that simple. You can start there, but you'll get about the same level of elementary output as the elementary level questions and prompts that you put in. One of the places I'm seeing a lot of people spend time, good time, is to start to curate their corporate body of prompts, so that they can start to share those and then analyze those together so that they're
so what is
able.
What is a corporate body of prompts?
You're creating your own engineering prompts. So we have our own repository with different prompts in it. And we simply share them. And there are multiple. You can search some of the public repositories out there. Go to GitHub, go to GitLab, and you'll find repositories filled with all kinds of prompts. And you can take that prompt, and they're not as simple as a single sentence. They have additional context. They have examples in them to say, I want you to do something like this. Here are 3 samples of what that should look like. It tells it the persona that if it's especially generative AI, it'll tell the model what persona to undertake when it is trying to generate this. So it adds to more statistics, more numbers, more parameters to the calculations.
Maybe I'll give an example. We've decided to experiment with using Gen AI to create our documentation at JIT. And what we've done is we decided that this is another thing that the developers need to be responsible for. As the definition of done for a feature, they need to create just, very simple documentation. They're not all native English speakers, so this isn't something that I can go and publish, but they need to come up with something, that describes it. And so what we did was we brought a bunch of prompts that we told them, use ChatGPT, here's the prompt, you give them exactly, the code or whatever you want to say, and then it comes up with at least a really good start for documentation. I still have a tech writer on my team, and she still reviews everything, but it's a really good baseline that we didn't have before that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that helps a lot. To be honest, at the end, all the AI solutions, they are smart, but they are dumb at the same time. So, of course, you need to train them. You need to train them properly with your personal insights or company insights, and that's going to be really a change on everything. If you provide the right background, then the answers that you will get, they are totally different than anything that you can ask without the background. Because if you don't give the proper context, the AI might get lost, and it's going to provide you certain answers. So it always provides you an answer, but without the context, this answer is not what you are looking for. I'm thinking, for instance, on project management, when we are thinking about, estimating the weighted sub job first, which, to be honest, it helps a lot. If you provide a set of activities and then you ask it to please calculate this value for me without any prior insights, it's going to give you totally different numbers than if you provide, okay, I'm running this business or this application or this solution, which needs to be done by this time, and this is the type of actions that we have, and this is the background in technology that we have, and so on. This is going to give you more reality because it's going to get all these inputs, all these variables, and it's going to calculate everything based on that. So I think that's one of the things that sometimes we just overlook because, you can just type something on the chat. But to be honest, it's very important that we provide the right insights before going into prompting.
And remember that in all of this, we are trending towards talking about generative AI. But AI algorithms that are non-generative in nature and ML have been around for a bit, and we've been leveraging them to, or its statement earlier, to help us get after the trends, to understand, right, when we're looking at portfolios of not a single product, but looking across entire product lines, looking across that larger grouping, we can apply and understand trends. The algorithms are better at detecting patterns than humans. Generally, there are some humans that are pretty darn amazing with their experience, but they are better at that pattern identification. So we will also start to see allocations, which people are assigned to do different things. We'll start to see work being reallocated to different areas of the organization. I think we'll see a number of things around as the corpus of data gets fed in and we start to build smarter models that show us examples of estimations. I think we'll start to see that. Remember that right now, I think it's the Standish Group. They said that roughly we're still only at about 35% of projects that succeed. So we're feeding in a lot of bad data. We're going to have to get better at that, to get better at the estimations and the additional help that we get out of any of these algorithms.
We've got a couple more questions from the audience. I think it's time to hear from Anna probably again. So Anna, there's one question which is about metrics. So the question is, what metrics do you envision that will drive AI and project stroke program stroke portfolio management? So what do you think?
The metrics, okay, the milestones, they are defined between the customer and the contractor, whoever is delivering the project. AI will facilitate it, you are getting to those milestones. But who defines the milestones is you and your customer. And a lot of times these are already signed in the contract. So it's not something that the AI is not generate your milestones. No, AI will facilitate and will help. And that goes to, we hear, a lot of talking about, oh, AI will take away our jobs, it will take away this. No, AI, behind AI, there is always people, people like you and I with different skills, different knowledges, but it's people. So the metrics, you define the metrics. AI will facilitate you, but that's it.
The metrics themselves will be set based on what your needs are, right, Anna? Your
Exactly.
unique context. What are you trying to accomplish? It
Yeah.
should be the same types of things. Now, we will see the growth of new and different metrics as we go that will help us with the tuning of the models themselves. So we'll see some other improvement metrics come along. But for project and program portfolio product management, it's still going to come down to our risk, the value that we're delivering, the speed at which we're delivering them, the defects that we're able to track. I hope that we can get into some of the other human metrics around things
I think
like trust.
Yeah.
There's a couple you mentioned
Yeah.
there, though, speed and defect, that I think AI really can address, particularly speed, because as we keep on saying, AI is not going to replace the humans, but what it does is it gives us huge cognitive load leaps. So we can do much more. So Tracy, as you explained, we can ask ChatGPT or whatever to tell us things, and it'll tell us them much more quickly than we can figure out it ourselves, but they may not be correct. So
Right.
there is a human element of validation that's absolutely required. I'm talking of ChatGPT. We've got another question from the audience, which is, besides ChatGPT and Bard, what are the other most relevant AI tools that we can use for project management? Or we could turn that question around a little bit, and we'll start again with Anna. What project management tools use AI, or what project management tools are specifically built with AI in them?
Other than ChatGPT, we have some, in-house generated tools, which basically we feed in, and with the information we so some reports and data is come out in the other end. Okay, but to be honest, we don't have any ChatGPT, because of this, feeding in the Microsoft project into it and generating the document that you need at the other end is probably the most used, if that.
Yeah.
Because especially because I work with customer transformation, so moving from it's not products that I my all my it's always been systems migration, systems platform transformation, customer transformation from a whole platform to another. So we use it AI more as something to automate, but not to generate code or products.
Thank you to address that from project to product conversation from earlier. Just as we've received another question from the audience, which is, how would you envisage the use of AI in defining the product backlog? And this was coming to you, Trace, and prioritization in agile world. So let's get Trace. I've got a feeling that Orit and Guillermo will have a lot to say here as well, but let's start with Trace.
I will try to keep it as succinct as possible. What's really cool about this is leveraging, you can take a transcription. If I have a conversation with Helen Beal as my sponsor, as my stakeholder, as my end user, I can now take that conversation, assuming that I facilitated it well enough, and I can have any of those models, most of the models, decompose and help me to create the requirements. I can have it actually give it a sample of what I want user stories to look like, and it can help to generate those user stories. Now, I still need to turn around and validate those. To Guillermo's point earlier, you can't simply trust what it generates, but there's a lot that's been going on. We've been doing a ton of initial experimentation and validating what we're getting from those. The same thing when it comes to the prioritization, because you fed in a corpus of information that allows you to do the comparative analysis, it can help, the models can help you to jumpstart what those priorities are. Again, not depending on 100%, but that idea of jumpstarting, giving you a faster time to get things done, you do have to spend time to evaluate it. So don't assume that what you're getting is perfect, but as long as you put in that time to validate, you'll be in a safe space.
Yeah, so piggybacking on what Tracy said, besides generating the stories themselves, I think that we can leverage AI a lot in terms of priority and deciding what we're going to work on. Simply because usually when you do any kind of prioritization to your product backlog, you're using some kind of framework. Let's just say RICE, for example, which is looking for your impact and effort and whatever, and kind of creates some kind of model that tells you, okay, here's a percentage of what you should do. The model, it's exactly trained to do that, right? It'll know how many customers are impacted based on the feature. If we integrate also other tools, like any tool that records customer conversations or feature requests, and you can see how many likes or upvotes you have for specific things. It can help you, again, with something we're really bad at as humans, understand the trend, understand really what is the most wanted functionality, understand the level of complexity that you have from developers, and kind of combine that into some kind of prioritization engine. Also, in the agile world, one of the things that take the longest is planning. This is key for helping us plan. It's usually some kind of back and forth between product and the engineering team saying, oh, we want this is too big, let's break it down. How can we break it down? It's always the same conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So this can help us bring a lot of information to the table beforehand and make it much more efficient conversation, in my opinion.
There's a piece to insert there as well, and that is we're also able to use it to understand if we have missing requirements. So when we're talking about having those, generating those requirements, we can now also have the decomposition and start looking for things that are missing in this, because you're able to do the comparative. Perhaps it's not identical software that it's being compared to, but being able to compare it to other bodies of requirements and see what are we missing. So from that perspective, it can also be a safety net for you.
Yeah, for me, I've been using it for defining product backlogs, even initial product backlogs for prototypes and innovation solutions. Well, first thing that I would like to tell the audience is don't expect that you get the backlog in one single prompt. You might need to run 30, 40 prompts. And my tip on that is first you need to define what's your product. And if you provide all kind of details like requirements, functional, non-functional, what's the audience, how you want to run it, what kind of technologies you have at your scope, who will be the users, the personas, all these kind of things. So if you provide all requirements analysis first to the model, and then you ask okay, now please bring me in, I don't know, 16 weeks forward, what will be the biggest milestones or the sprint goals for 16 weeks, it's going to give you a little bit of the view. And then you'll need to go for each of them a little bit deeper, okay, and now give me the user stories for this one and this one. And then you'll have to challenge it all the time. No, I think you are wrong here. It doesn't make sense, or this makes sense. And you will need to ask again and again the similar question a lot of times. Okay, but how is this going to bring me value? Where is the structure going to be done? I don't know, these kind of things. This is the most important stuff. You won't get a backlog in one shot. You really need to have a lot of work behind. And in the meantime, so you really need to have a proper conversation with that. And at the end, to be honest, it provides you really good insights, I would say. I've been using it for a couple of things, and I was surprised, to be honest, with the quality of the structure that was giving me for a backlog. in terms of features
It's
and
still a
road
machine,
mapping?
though. It's still a machine that you are, a tool that you are garbage in, garbage out. Time well spent curating what you put in, curating your prompts. There's still, we have to agree overall that there's time invested in training the models, and models
Let's talk about
themselves
this a
are
little bit
subject
more.
to
Yeah. So I
getting
just want to
worse.
interrupt for a second because I just want to just pause for a second because we're covering a lot of topics and kind of moving around. But I think let's direct ourselves now to talk about adoption, which I think you were starting to lean towards anyway, Trace. But we've got a question from the audience about, well, it was comment really, we can start using AI in similar or same category projects like 5G rollout, etc. And interestingly, they've made a comment about moving from weak type 1 to type 2 AI. So let's take a step back because I've asked the audience a couple of questions in the chat about where they are at with AI adoption, and it seems like they're very early. So on the panel, we've got different examples of people that have been using it in different ways for different periods of time. But speaking to the audience specifically as people that maybe haven't done anything in their project management world with AI yet, what is the adoption path, Tracy? Where do they start? You were talking about training models there, but what is the starting moment?
There's no immediate framework for everybody. Here's your checklist of how to do this. Take a look at your organization, pulse your organization, and think intentionally about where you need help. Apply it where you need help. If you have repetitive tasks, we know that with repetitive automations, we know that repetitive tasks are one of the easiest value adds that we can leverage with models. But it is looking at that and identifying I recommend one place for your first start. And you also need to make a decision. Is it worth your effort when you first start to reduce the amount of cognitive overload on your organization by leveraging a model as a service, as opposed to standing up your own models and training your own models? So you do have to determine, are we going to build, train, and nurture the model ourselves or depend on somebody else? And where do we think we can get the value for this? How are we going to test that? And how are we going to measure that kind of improvement that we're looking for? So it's a couple of different questions. Sorry, put my architecture hat on. There's a couple of different questions that you have to ask. But I would always tell folks, don't roll out big to start. You need to get your security vectors very well tamed. You need to understand the risk that you put your organization at, whether you are hosting that model or somebody else is hosting that model.
And Anna, what about you in your environment? How did you decide to dip your toes in the AI water and decide how to do things, which to do first?
Exactly what Tracy said. Like, there is no model. That's how you apply AI. No, every project is unique. Okay. And so what you do is you look at your project, look at your critical paths, look at the critical steps, not necessarily the longest, but things that they are repetitive, that can be done better, can be done faster. And from there, okay, you start to apply the intelligence and make it quicker. And that's how you do it. You look at your program, you made that plan. It's not AI, it's not AI generated, it's not a plan that some AI is going to tell you that's how you do it. No, you look at your plan with your stakeholders, and then you look at the parts or pieces that can be done quicker and better, and then you start from there. And that's how, and then it worked great, so you do a little bit more, and that's how it's done. There is no magic, at least I haven't come across any magic, AI. Oh, you're doing 5G rollout, that's how you do it. Here, you're gonna do I don't know, a customer site closure, that's how you do it. No, that you have to really look at your plan and see where you can apply AI, and start small, because you build not only your confidence, but confidence, your team needs to be confident as well, and your stakeholders, of course. So yeah, that's how I do it, how we do it.
So we've established that there's lots of ways in which AI can help us reduce cognitive load and go faster, be more confident in the decisions that we're making, have higher quality outputs. What we haven't talked so much about yet is the risks. So we've touched on the risk of job replacement, which none of us on this call or on this panel, I think, believe that it's going to be, particularly in our industry, replacing jobs. So it's really augmenting what we're doing. I think there are some other industries which are slightly different. But in the knowledge worker industry, it's mainly helping us do more with less or the same. But there are other risks as well. And actually, that very first question that we had from the audience about governance, I think we should go back there in a bit more detail. And Guillermo, can you give us any insights from your point of view on how AI might put us at risk in terms of not following regulations that we should be, or perhaps how it might introduce unethical bias into systems without us realizing?
Very good question, and I think that applies mainly when we are talking to enterprise companies and so on. When you are using AI for your own in a more local, personal level, well, of course, you don't need to have a framework around it for governance because you are alone and so on. But when we are talking about companies that they have thousands of people, the game changes a lot, obviously. Well, luckily for us, the different solutions and cloud providers are starting to release certain solutions that allows you to establish AI models that they run only on your company. So for me, that's one of the things that they are very important. It's not the same as when you are running certain things on ChatGPT and it's open or potentially exposed, rather than if you run something on your local environment or your company environment, because it's not going to go away from that. So for me, that's a very important thing. Next topic will be, for instance, if I go back to Copilot, coding generators. Well, Microsoft said, like, if there is any blame for them or for the company because using of proprietary inputs and so on, they will fight with you on anything. So that really brings a lot of power to any company using Copilot, because you feel a little bit more safe in that sense. Because at the end, if there is an argument, if there is a file or something against you, Microsoft is going to help you. Microsoft is going with you on that, and they fight, trying to defend that. Then in terms of governance, to be honest, I've not seen any kind of like framework, personally speaking, that informs you like it has to be like this and like that with this kind of people on top of. I've seen like there are departments in the big companies now that they are starting to get like, okay, this is the AI department and we are going to run everything from AI. We are going to tell you what's allowed, what's not allowed, what you can do, what you cannot do. But to be honest, most of the times when I've seen that is just some people, they want to build their own ivory tower and they want to, put limits on something. Like, now, since no one is controlling that, I want to control it. So if you want to do something, you have to pass through me in order to do stuff. I'm not sure if the other people in the audience, they have different views and so on. I think it's a good idea to have certain governance, obviously, because you can do really bad things with AI and you can make mistakes, a lot of mistakes, obviously. But I think it's important that you see how to control that. It's not the same controlling than banning, than not allowing people to use it, or just giving it a full stop.
Yeah, I think there's lots of interesting points in there, not least this idea of the centralized body within an organization. And we've certainly seen that with innovation centers and DevOps teams before. And I think the point you make is that they shouldn't be gatekeepers. I think if they're enablers for the organization, that's useful. I think from an ethical and bias point of view, any organization that's even using AI, let alone kind of building AI for the use of other people, needs to have a governance body that specifically understands what they're doing and the limitations. But alongside that governance conversation, I wanted to explore with Orit a little bit more as well, because the AI is democratizing tools in a way that we've not seen before. We've had low code and no code for a while, but if you add AI to low code and no code, it makes it a lot more possible for more people in an organization to deliver pieces of a project. The downside of all of this is it's also democratized cyber attacks. So it becomes easier for bad actors to use AI and easier access to technologies to attack us. So with your master cybersecurity head on, what does the AI versus AI battlefields look like for enterprises?
So it's definitely a concern, and it's one of the risk factors that anyone needs to take on. We talked about it a little bit before in the panel of the security concerns of, AI code that is just not secure. We've already seen it. Also, there's a lot of AI companies coming up, and everyone has their own. I've talked to an AI company that does design to code, or there's different popping up startup companies and others that not everything is governed like ChatGPT or Microsoft and can be really defended well. So it's really used at your own risk. AI, just like any other piece of software, is prone to bugs. And so one of the concerns is how comfortable you feel with the code that they're providing you to use. Again, we have to be very careful with the prompts that may or may not have proper context to answer my question, because I may give you some kind of secure code, but if you combine it with another package that you're using, an open source package, maybe that opens up a new vulnerability, a new thing that you can exploit. The ChatGPT doesn't have exactly the map of your architecture and your infrastructure to take everything into consideration. So you need to be very, very careful with what you're using. Another thing that is a concern in the AI world is that I'm sure anyone who's used ChatGPT has gotten the response, I only know everything till 2021, and there's it's 2 years later. It may it's old news, right? So how often do you upgrade it? How often do you check that what you did is still secure, right? Similar to other security tools that scan based on changes and the database changes. It's very good in using AI. You don't even sometimes it's not even mapped as AI written code, and you don't even know that you're vulnerable, even if they had upgraded their version. So there's a lot of different concerns here when using AI.
Yeah. There's a broader threat is that, to your point, there are so many companies that are coming out with new offerings. It's no different than any time that new tools come out. The rush to take something to market can mean that it is not as secure. One of the most prevalent attack vectors right now are the new add-ins for your browser. So there are all kinds of adapters, there are all kinds of plugins. Those plugins themselves are not secure. So you're providing your information to an interface for it to upload it into ChatGPT or upload it into any of the other public offerings. So now we have additional middlemen that we're adding into the mix. But to Orit's point, it's no different than the amount of diligence that we need to put in when we're picking a cloud vendor to provide us with cloud services. Anytime we're asking somebody to take on responsibility for us, we need to be asking how they're securing their data. What is their authentication and authorization mechanisms? How are they handling when there is an attack on their side? How are they protecting us? It's a whole series of questions that we need to always be asking, whether it is a new generative AI model or you're buying some other kind of as a service capability. You're trusting somebody else, and you better make sure that it's written into that agreement that you have with them what those protections are.
Yeah, and it's also your IP, which is super sensitive. And it may have customer data, and then there's all these other GDPR and other compliances that you have to, adhere to. It's a very complicated area. I mean, we have software bill of materials for different packages and open sources. We don't have it yet for AI. Perhaps we should.
Yeah, that's an entire another hour conversation about what happens when you have code that's being generated, packages that are being generated, refactoring that's going on. Whose IP is that? Is it truly just being handed to you by a model, or is there some attribution back to where it was trained?
I think I do want to kind of go down that route a little bit, actually, based on a question from the audience, and just to kind of, with 10 minutes to go, sort of summarize some of the things that we've talked about. So obviously, AI has been around for a while. 2023, I think it's jumped into mass consciousness thanks to OpenAI releasing ChatGPT and everyone becoming much more aware of it. And ChatGPT for me is a very, obviously it's a large language model. It's a very specific type of use case for AI. I've done a lot of work with AI ops in the past, which is much more sort of algorithmic, predictive analytics based. But let's think about the different types of AI that people could be using. They could just be using ChatGPT or Bard, like we've talked about, to generate some code or generate some documentation. They could be using AI in the way that Anna's described with Microsoft Projects or another project management software platform that has integrated some bits of AI, perhaps as Anna described, for generative AI. For project closure, perhaps it's a VA or a virtual assistant that has been incorporated. Or perhaps people are starting to think about building their own AI models. And as we said, along with low code, no code, sometimes this is looking a bit easier than it was. One of the audience did ask, though, about models. So is there a list of specific models already created that you can begin to utilize or tweak or train to begin with if you're new to this? So I actually put a couple of links in the chat, one to some IBM research on the foundation models and also to examples from AWS. So I wondered if any of you also had some resources. And for me, Tracy, this feels a little bit like artifact repositories and SBOMs in the Sonatype world. So where we put all these binaries, now we've got these repositories for AI models that people are going to draw on, and it's going to be difficult to govern. And its ability to govern it and look out for vulnerabilities is going to be as important as it has been for software binary artifacts. But anyone else on the panel want to talk about specific ways to get a head start on your AI adoption by looking out to these repositories of knowledge that you can draw down from?
Well, from my side, if you have never tried it and you're curious about it, go to ChatGPT and start just asking things, like whatever, any kind of thing. It's a way to learn, like just by playing. I do highly recommend that, especially at the beginning if you're a newbie, and then try to do something complex with that, and you'll see, like, okay, it does way more than you might think, and then try to challenge it, because that way you will discover that it fails a lot as well, and I think that's important. That is something for the audience to know, like, it fails. It provides answers, as we mentioned today, that are super well written, and you might think like it's totally accurate because of the well versed it is, but still it fails. It might be an incorrect answer. Even mathematics results, sometimes they do wrong calculations. So from my side, I think that's important thing. And then give it a shot as well. If you are working on something on project management, try to validate something that you are thinking with that. Sometimes it's good to even validate your thinking with some AI model, because it gives you certain views sometimes, and it's, it can bring you an opinion that you might not have, or it can challenge your inputs. So those are things that you can start doing.
I would add simple things, like try what you're already using in your company.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what kind of project management tools each and every one of you are using, but Monday, Notion, they all have some kind of AI capability. Zoom has just added AI summaries, which I think if you combine AI summaries from Zoom together with Notion's AI, you can pretty much get all your action items done into planning. So I'm just, explore with what you're already using. You don't have to go to ChatGPT or Bard or something new.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's a really important part of it. Be practical. I know we keep saying that, but I'll keep pounding on that. Be practical. Look at where you could use some help, evaluate it. And if you already have tools, or its point is spot on, almost every vendor is looking at a way that they can help their constituency. So ask them. If it's not already in their products, where are they planning to add it to their products? And then you can even have the conversation on how you can best fill that gap in the short term. So there's lots of opportunities. I really recommend folks look at their local regional areas. There are so many meetups that are going on, people getting together and testing things out in a more informal setting together. There's a lot of fun that's happening from that perspective as well.
Okay, let's start wrapping this up with about 5 minutes to go. Quite often at this point in the webinar, I like to talk about futures. It's a really interesting one to talk about, though, in the context of AI, though, because it's kind of like we seem to be talking about the future when we're talking about AI. So, Orit, where are we, do you think, in terms of market adoption? Is everything that we've talked about today futures, or is it here? It just needs to be implemented?
I think a lot of it is here. I think the unknown is greater than the known at this point. So when we talk about, usually in every panel ends on what's the future, and we say AI, but this is a panel about AI.
Exactly.
So I think it's about gaining more trust in the responses that we're getting, having more integrations between different companies and applications with AI, because each one individually has its own power and it can save you a lot of time. But when you combine those integration points, it can do like beautiful things. Like I said, the AI summary in Zoom together with Notion, it can just create all the action items for you. It's just really, really cool. I don't think they have an integration yet, but it's something that I discussed with a colleague yesterday. And we're like, oh, we have all this content. Why don't they just connect together? And also these integration points, again, because I keep coming back to the fact that we as humans are really bad at trends. Sometimes integration points are exactly the failure points when we're doing project planning or anything, also value stream, Helen, which you probably know. Integration points is our weakest points. And so if we could leverage AI for that, I think, that's the next phase.
Yeah. Let's do some key takeaways then. So, Anna, what are your key takeaways for the audience today? What are the last things you'd like to leave them with thinking about, or maybe some kind of epiphany that you've had during today's discussion?
It goes back to the first thing. I believe Tracy was the one saying that people are behind the AI. AI is not some entity. It's like people with data and mathematics equations that are behind it. So embrace it, learn it. And a system is just as hard as the one you don't know. Once you know it, it's easy. And AI is nothing more than a very, very smart system that you just need to learn how to use it.
Guillermo, what about you? What are your key takeaways today?
From my side, I would say that the AI is just starting at the moment. Super powerful, as we can see already. OpenAI just released this thing that really became a trend last year. It's growing enormously, not only for text, but also images and any other thing, which is amazing. Absolutely. I don't really know where it's going to go in the future and what kind of things it's going to bring us. Maybe Terminators, maybe not. Who knows? We will see. But it's something that, as a techie, I'm really loving to use, and I do really highly recommend it to use. Same as we are using computers or a calculator. If we use it for just helping us with the redundant tasks and so on, it's a great benefit. However, we all know that everything and every big power comes with risks. Yeah, it's important to really acknowledge about it and be careful.
And you, Trace, what would you like to leave the audience with?
Don't be afraid of it, but be very aware of it. And you need to, if your employer says no AI whatsoever, you need to have a conversation to be thinking about that. In the very near future, we are going to see any job is going to come with the need for you to be able to leverage different types of AI ML tools for your field. So you may be getting behind if your organization is not allowing you to at least investigate together, but be highly cognizant that it's not perfect. Be highly cognizant that you have to test and train. Be practical. Really be practical.
And the final word from Orit today.
I definitely agree to Tracy's point where you need to just try it out. I do think we're in an era where whoever's not going to be using Gen AI is going to be left behind. So I don't think they're going to replace us, but I do think that highly skilled humans who know what they're doing may be the ones to replace us. So I would definitely get on the AI train. Definitely validate everything that you're doing. So trust and verify. I guess don't just blindly use whatever the AI is telling you, but learn it. I mean, the Gen AI can save so much time of your main repetitive daily tasks, no matter project management, coding, just writing documents, that it's just a shame not to use it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, audience, for joining us today to hear our views on how artificial intelligence impacts project management. And a huge thank you to our panelists, Trace, Anna, Guillermo, and Orit. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.